Qur'anist, I find it very important for me to stick to the text in order to come to the correct conclusion. Um, to my mind, whenever I come in from a perspective other than that of the text, I run the risk of not seeing what the author of the Quran wants me to see. So this is, I feel that this is what happened in the case of the Qibla, because of the external narrative of the earlier Qibla. This was not actually shown to us. So the phrase which I think Jake was trying to get at or trying to refer to was from chapter 2, verse 143, which says, um, there you go. Yeah, وَمَا جَعَلْنَا قِبْلَةَ الَّتِي كُنْتَ عَلَيْهَا إِلَّا لِنَعْلَمَ مَن يَتَّبِعُ الرَّسُولَ مِمَّا يَنْقَلِبُ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ. We did not set a qibla on which you used to be on, except to know who followed the messenger from those who turned upon their heels. Now, this is the beginning. This is not the beginning of even the verse, let alone the passage. The beginning of the verse of chapter 2, verse 143 is actually a very famous verse. It's وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ شَهِيدًا وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. And like that, we made them a middle ummah. Now, this is a very important phrase. This is a unique phrase in the Quran. It never appears anywhere else. Litakuna, litakunu shuhada ala nas, that you may be witnesses upon the people. Wayakuna rasul alaykum shahida, and the Rasul is witness unto you. Now, what is the role of the ummata wasatan? Now, the word wasatan means to be at the center. And here, the center would be as witnesses unto mankind. And then Allah mentions the former Qibla. What is that former Qibla? Again, we have to go back to context. Chapter 2, verse 142, the previous verse in this case. سَيَقُولُ سُفَهَا مِنَ النَّاسِ, the foolish among the people, they would say, مَا وَلَّهُمْ عَنْ قِبْلَتِهِمْ الَّتِي كَانُوا عَلَيْهَا. What turned them from the Qibla which they were upon? قُلْ لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبِ. Say, to Allah belongs the east and the west. Yahdi man yasha ila siratim mustaqim. He guides them towards the siratim mustaqim. The new qibla is symbolized, is a symbol of siratim mustaqim. This is what was not their qibla before. This is quite obvious from the context. I don't see how this is the direction of prayer. In fact, if you look at the entire context from chapter 2, verse 122 to 152, you will not see any command to pray at all. This is rather the qibla of the mind. And that is why in verse 144, I don't think I have time to get into that, but if Jake wants me to, I can. Verse 144, it talks about the search for the Qibla by the Prophet. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, can I respond to that, Hanif? Just let me
Of
know
course,
when you
it's
have to
on y'all.
go.
Hey, this is on y'all, bro. Go like I'm gonna let y'all. You know, you got it, bro.
Yeah, just let me know when you want to shut it down or when it's coming to a close. That's all.
Nah, go ahead. Go. I'm gonna let you know. I done pushed those meetings back, so I'm good. But
Yeah.
like I do got something to do. But like I said, I'm a rock. I'll let you know.
Okay. Inshallah. So I just want to ask Farouk a question so he can clarify because I don't know his position. Um, do you believe that Salah is a ritual prayer?
I do not know.
Okay, you do not. So, just to be clear to Hanif and other people, as I mentioned, that amongst the so-called Qur'anists, and some of them don't like the term, so I'm not using it disparagingly. I'm just using it as a descriptor. People who claim to
I'm a
follow
Quranist,
only,
Jake. It's okay. You can
yeah,
call me a Quranist. I am a
people
Quranist.
people who claim to follow only the Quran, there are different groups, and that's what I mentioned earlier, and they have different beliefs about the Quran and about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. One of them is that some of them are what I call ritualists, and some of them are anti-rituals, in the sense that you will have some of them, and I think Brother Habib is maybe opposed to what Farouk is saying and what his position about Salah is, and maybe he can come in later if he wants to address it at all. But you have some amongst them who believe that the typical things that Sunnis consider to be rituals, they agree with that. Salah is a ritual prayer. Siyam is a ritual fasting during the month of Ramadan. You have all of what we consider, but not all of, but the main rituals, right, are considered Hajj, right, pilgrimage to Mecca. They consider them to be rituals. Now, they may have slightly different understandings or in terms of the details of that, but broadly speaking, we agree. Then you have people like Farouk, and I'm just mentioning this for the sake of clarity. I'm not trying to grandstand or anything, but you have people like Farouk who do not believe that. They, in my, with all due respect, reinterpret the verses to make them no longer recognizable. They think that Hajj is not a pilgrimage to Mecca. Salah is not a ritual prayer to be prayed 5 times a day or any amount of times a day. Siyam is not a ritual fasting. It's just abstaining from certain things, and so on and so forth. So what we're dealing here with Farouk, and the way that he may answer this question, is not necessarily the same way that Brother Habib would answer it. And I know it's not, because I've spoken to him about this before. So just to point that out, you have to understand that when I was dealing with this, Farouk, because you're talking about taking these external evidences, I had no knowledge of this narrative from Hadith. So it had nothing to do with that for me personally. Now, you're talking about that this is merely a qibla of the mind, right? And or something of that sort, and that it's not a direction of prayer. Now, what we would need to do, and which may require more time, is to actually look into what Masjid al-Haram is in the Qur'an, because we don't have a clear description, okay, of what this first qibla is, and that's part of the problem. But in order for your position to be consistent, you must likewise then also say that Masjid al-Haram is not a place, it's not a location which is a direction of prayer for the believers, which is in the next verse, which says that this is the new qibla, right? So now turn towards the new qibla, which is Masjid al-Haram. So I want to know if that is likewise your position, because I think it needs to be in order to remain consistent, that Masjid al-Haram in the next verse is not a physical place, which is a direction of prayer for Muslims today. Is that your position?
It is a physical place, but it is not the direction of prayer. There is no prayer mentioned in that context.
Okay, it is a physical place, right? So what is the directing to that place mean?
Directing to that place of the walla wajhaka, the turning of your face towards that is the orientation of the self towards a place which enshrines the hurumat of Allah. Masjid al-Haram corresponds to the hurumat of Allah, explained in chapter 6, verse 151, which is Kul atlum Kul ta'alaw. Say, come, atlu ma harrama rabbukum alaykum. I will recite what your Lord has made sacred for you, or sacred or sacrilegious for you. That either word works. So Masjid al-Haram is a place where all the hurumat are in place.
Yeah, it says, to be clear in the verse, and I'm at work right now, by the way, so I'm trying to multitask. It says that to turn, right, to Masjid al-Haram, wherever you are, turn your faces towards it. Okay, and you're saying that that's merely a directing or focusing your mind towards whatever you think that the symbols of Mecca and Masjid al-Haram are. And you're saying that you want to actually stick to the text, but nowhere does it actually say that in the text. So where are you getting this idea from?
I'm sorry, I never mentioned Makkah.
Okay, Masjid al-Haram,
A
the
place.
place. If you don't consider it Mecca, then you can consider it Petra or wherever you want. It doesn't matter.
I don't consider it Petra either. I consider it a place where the hurmat of Allah are in place.
Okay, where's that?
There is no specified place. It is a place where the hurmat of Allah are in place.
Yeah,
As
but
I
you
mentioned
just
to you,
said,
please look at chapter.
But you said it's a place. So now it seems like you're using the term place ambiguously. I don't know what you mean by place.
A space, a geographical location in which the hurumat are in place. The geographical location is not specified.
Okay,
So
so
this is
where
what you
it's
should
not
turn
one
towards.
specific place?
It's definitely one place, but where the hurumat are in place. This is a very key phrase here, Jake.
But I'm asking you
Hurumat
what
of
it is
Allah
though.
must. Yes, I already mentioned to you the context. Have the another passage, chapter 6, verse 151 to 153, tells you what it is, and at the end it says wa anna sirati mustaqima, and
Yes,
it
I'm
is a
familiar.
sirat, my path, which is straight. Here again, yahdi ila sirati mustaqim, chapter 2, verse 142. So if you can see, there is a concordance of verses going on there,
But that's not a place
rather
though
than
in,
as
in, in those verses, right?
well, you see, the word masjid from that form, masjid is a place where sujud takes place. And
No,
here
I'm talking
it's
about the
Masjid
verses you mentioned in
al-Haram.
chapter 6.
Uh, Jake, I would appreciate some space, to actually respond. Would that be okay?
Yeah, but
Or
I mean,
do
we
you want
got
to
to
go for
have a
2 minutes?
dialogue
Do you want
now
to go for two
because,
minutes and let me go for 2 minutes? Because I'm not allowed to land my points. So I
okay,
just
go
don't
ahead.
mean, do you
You
want to?
can land your points, but what I'm saying is I don't understand your position. So in order for me to understand it, I'm going to have to ask you questions, right? And then I don't want to I
But
ask you a question and you talk for 2 minutes because your answer, I'm going to need clarification on it.
Well, if that's the case, then you should ask me all those questions, and then maybe I can answer you in a given space of time, because it seems to me that I'm being cut short before I can land
Okay,
my
so here's my
points.
question, and
So
then you
if
can go for 2 minutes, and I'll stop. My question is
all
in
right,
the verses
mm-hmm,
that you're
mm-hmm.
mentioning from chapter 6, verses 151 to 153, you're connecting it to Masjid al Haram, and I'm asking, where is it in those verses anything mentioned about a place? And can you clarify what you mean by a place? What is this specific place, etc.?
Okay, well, again, I actually already recited to you this part, but maybe you were not listening at the time. It was chapter 6, verse 151. Right. Kul ta'alaw. Say, come. Atlu ma harrama rabbukum alaykum. Please pay attention to this word, Jake. Ma harrama rabbukum alaykum. Harrama. Masjidil Haram. Harrama rabbukum. Your Lord has made this either sacred or sacrilegious. Some are sacred, some are sacrilegious. Allah tushrik, tushriku bihi shay'an. That you do not associate with him anything. Wabil walidaini ihsana, and to your parents be good. You see, so the shirk bit, that is definitely forbidden, but the parents bit, that is definitely sacred. So these are certain set of values which have been explained in verses 151 to 152. I won't go through each of them, I don't have the time. And then it says in 153, wa anna hada sirati mustaqima fattabi'uh. So, and this is sirati mustaqima. This is my path which is straight. So follow it. So, and then I mentioned to you the concordance of verses, which is what Tafsirul Quran, Bil Quran is all about, which says in ayah 142, Yahdi mayyasha, he guides whomever he wills, ila siratim mustaqim. So there is a siratim mustaqim mentioned in this 142 and also in 6153. Now, to sum up what I understand this to mean, a qibla here, Masjid al-Haram, is a space in which these hurumat, harrama rabbukum alaykum. Again, remember, hurumat, harrama rabbukum alaykum. This is being enacted in this space. And the Prophet is told, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is told that he should turn his face towards it. That's what it is. It's not a specific geographical location. It is rather a space in which the hurumat of Allah are established. And I
Yeah,
hope that clarifies it for you. Thank you
yeah.
so much.
Okay, because I must have misheard you because I think you just said that it's not a specific geographical location, correct? Is that what you just said?
No, again. It is okay if you say it's not in city X, it's not in city Y, it's not in city Z. It can be any place where the hurmat of Allah are
Ahsant,
established. The
exactly. So it's
hurmat.
not limited to one
Thank you.
specific location. That's what I just said, and I asked you that earlier, and you said earlier that it was one specific location. You said that it was one geographical location, and now you're saying that
Oh,
it's not one geographical location.
I yeah, I feel like we're kind of talking past each other at this point. I'm saying the location is dependent upon the conditions, not upon the
Exactly.
designation of a geography.
Exactly.
Hopefully,
So it could be in
this is
many, it
clarified at
can
this
it
point.
can be many, it can be in many different places or contexts depending on the establishment of what is mentioned in 6151 to 153. I understand your point, and I'm saying that's not what you initially said.
No, no, that is what I initially said. I feel
Okay,
like
it's not,
that
but
kind of
let me
argues this
move on
point.
to show this point how
Please move on. Yeah.
that's incorrect, and all we need to do, right? Because you guys like to talk about tafsir of the Qur'an bil Qur'an, so doing tafsir with the Qur'an itself. You'll see anybody. All you need to do is bring up a concordance of the term Masjid al-Haram and see how it's used throughout the Qur'an. So in the same chapter, right? Um, Although you have different expressions of it sometimes, right? Masjid al-Haram is called the house. It's given different terminologies, but they refer to the same thing. In verse 158, it says the hills of Safa and Marwa are symbols of God, right? Which you were mentioning before. So whoever makes pilgrimage or hajj to the house, let him walk between the two hills. And whoever does good willingly, God or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is truly appreciative, all knowing. Okay. Now, another verse. I just want to establish how your understanding is going to make no sense when we actually analyze what the
Yeah, yeah.
Quran says.
Bring out
Just
all your verses and then land into
no,
this and let me respond.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm only
Good.
bringing one
Good.
more
Thanks.
verse here. So you have in the same
Okay.
chapter, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verses 196 and 197. And I'm reading in the English just because this is all I have right now. Complete the pilgrimage and for Allah, right? But if prevented from proceeding, then offer whatever sacrificial animals you can afford. And do not shave your heads until the sacrificial animal reaches its destination. But if any of you is ill, or has an ailment requiring shaving, then compensate either by fasting, charity, or sacrificial offering. In times of peace, you may combine the pilgrimage and the minor pilgrimage, then make the sacrificial offering you can afford. Whoever cannot afford that offering, let him then fast 3 days during pilgrimage. So there's something that is fasting, or that the siyam is within the pilgrimage itself. And 7 after returning home and completing those days. So it's a place. It's talking about going to from a specific location. These offerings are for those who do not live near the sacred house. Who do not live near the sacred house. It's a specific location. And be mindful of God and know that God is severe in punishment. Next verse, 197. Commitment to pilgrimage is made in the appointed months. Whoever commits to performing pilgrimage, let them stay away from intimate relations, foul language, and arguments during pilgrimage. Whatever good you do, God or Allah fully knows of it. Take necessary provisions for the journey. Surely the best provision is righteousness. And be mindful of me, O people of reason. Okay, I can go through numerous texts where it's very clear that there are offerings, okay, sacrificial offerings that are being made at the pilgrimage, that it consists of a certain amount of time, that there's 3 days of it when in fasting if you do this, and then 10 days completion when you turn back home. There's mentioning of people who are not living near the sacred house, near Masjid al-Haram. We can even go to in chapter 48. I know that I said that was going to be the last verse, but let me just mention one more because you mentioned something about Mecca. Okay. Let's see here. Let me see, where is it? Okay. So,
Verse 24.
yeah, verse 24, where it's mentioned, he is the one who held you back their hands from you and your hands from them, right, near Mecca, after giving you the upper hand over a group of them. And God is all seeing of what you do. They are the ones who persisted in disbelief and hindered you from the sacred mosque, preventing the sacrificial animals, which we just mentioned, from reaching their destination, right? So the context, notice the switch. These same individuals prevented you from what? Near Mecca. Then it mentions those same individuals are the ones who persisted in disbelief and prevented you from Masjid al-Haram. It's the same context. They prevented the sacrificial animals from reaching their destination, which are from Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2, which we just mentioned. So it is a specific place, okay? It is in Mecca. This is where Masjid al-Haram is. There are rituals that take place there, such as Hajj to that specific place, which also involves the sacrificing of animals, fasting, certain conditions and rules, so on and so forth. And the only way that this interpretation can be overturned is by doing complete gymnastics of the Arabic language and completely reinterpreting the Qur'an until it's no longer recognizable, and such a point that no one throughout the 1400-year tradition has ever translated or interpreted the text in the way that Farouk is now going to try to tell us is actually the correct way. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jake. May I ask, have you actually looked at the Arabic word for word translation while you are reciting these verses?
Not
Just to be
right now
sure.
because I only have an English Quran in front of me, but I've looked at them before
I
and
can
I
read
know
if
what
you
they
want.
are.
If
So
you want,
you can read them in Arabic and we can deal with the Arabic if you want.
yeah, it's gonna
I'm
be
sorry.
worse for him. Bring it
Yeah,
in
it's going to be
Arabic. Bring
worse
it. Go
in
ahead.
Arabic.
Because wallahi, it'll be worse. Bring it.
It's going to be worse in the Arabic. Worse.
Yeah,
Yes.
worse for you to be
Yeah.
able to
Because
defend your
yeah.
position.
Worse for me to. I see. Okay. Right. So we are looking at first chapter 2, verse 158, where Jake has made a false equivocation. The ayah is about the Safa and Marwa, and there is no Masjid al-Haram in that particular passage.
Can you read the
Rather, the
verse in
word
Arabic?
is, yeah, be right there with you. Uh, yeah, Jake, would you like to read your translation so that I can verify it? Go ahead.
No,
I can read it if you want.
just read it in Arabic, bro.
No, I'm asking for your translation because we are putting your translation under the microscope right now. So I hope you can read the
I'm not
translation. So,
concerned with the translation. Just go to the text. I'm not getting my
but
understanding
you
from the translation.
but you are putting forward your understanding based on your
No, it's
translation.
not
Is your
based on
translation
the translation. I just told you that. I've researched this in Arabic plenty of times. I just don't have the Arabic in front of me at the moment.
or do you have the translation in front of you?
Yeah, I just read it, dude.
Yeah, please read it again. I want to show you exactly where you went wrong. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember your translation because it was a few minutes ago. If you don't mind,
Oh
bro.
my God, man. 2
Yeah, go ahead.
158.
Please, yeah, please.
Indeed, the hills of Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of Allah. So whoever
Okay, please
makes
stop there. Please stop there. The hills of Safa and Marwa. Do you happen to remember what this is in Arabic, or do you happen to remember the hills of
Oh my
Safa
God.
and Marwa?
Bro, here's what you need to do.
Sabr, let's calm down. No need
Read
to
it
get
in
emotional.
Arabic.
No need
No,
to get
because
emotional.
you're wasting time.
No,
You're
no need to
wasting
get
time
emotional.
on
No,
things
I'm
that
not
are
wasting
not
time.
they're
Hey
not
Farouk,
consequential and
hey,
they're
hey,
not
hey,
relevant to the
hey,
text.
Mr. Farouk, are you gonna read it in Arabic or not?
I'm challenging his interpretation, Mr. Williams.
My
He
Okay.
said the
interpretation is
hills of
not
Safa
based
and
on the
Marwa.
fact of hills being there. Let's read it again. Indeed, Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of
Thank
God.
you.
We don't care about the
Thank you.
mention of hills being there. It's in the translation because it's based
Thank you.
on an understanding of what we know historically Safa and Marwa are to be. It's irrelevant to me.
Thank you.
It has no purpose of
Thank
whether or
you.
not they're hills.
But I would like the room to see that this is a demonstration of what happens in translation so as to mislead the reader into thinking that this is related to Hajj. The hills of Safa and Marwa were deliberately placed there in order for us to think that these are the two locations in Makkah. Thank you, Jake, for that.
Okay, so it's,
That's
the
not what it
Arabic
has
says
anything to do with.
إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج
Correct.
البيت فمن حج البيت.
Hajj al-Bayt.
Go ahead, what does this mean, Farouk? Go ahead.
Whoever performs a pilgrimage to the house.
Okay,
Where is
what
the
is the
house? Is
house?
it a
Is the
physical? Is
house
it a
is the
physical location?
So,
hold on, Mahad,
okay,
because
well,
we don't want to jump on the guy. Is the house the same in this verse as Masjid al-Haram? Are they the same?
no.
They're not the same.
No, it is
Okay, and I'm
not.
going to show you how they are. Watch this. Go ahead.
I'm really sorry. You know, Jake, it does require some listening skills. You know, when you have a discussion, try to have some listening skills,
I am listening to
because
you
the
very
things are
well.
not as monodimensional as you think. Now, the Quran uses the phrase al-Bayt, the word al-Bayt, and al-Masjid, and al-Masjid al-Haram in several different places to denote several different things. Now, for you
We're
to
talking
quote
about in
this
this
particular verse,
context.
and yes, sir. Hmm. Al-Bayt is used here for a specific purpose because it is to focus on the system itself. Where is Al-Bayt mentioned first? Chapter 2, verse 1 to 4. What is it? I'm sorry, Jake, you were saying something? Or?
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, did I say something which caused levity? Are you okay? Or
Yeah, I'm
I just
fine.
want to make sure that you are
I think
following.
this is just an exercise of the problem with the so-called Qur'anist or Qur'an only perspective, because you have to completely misrepresent the text and come up with interpretations that no one preceded you in. But
Uh,
continue in demonstrating that.
Well, I'm sorry, Jake. You know, the thing is, in the passage which you quoted to prove Qibla as a direction of Salah, the word Salah is not actually there. Hence, if you wish to insert the word Salah there, you would have to do it by some logical
Nobody is
gymnastics.
inserting it.
And
It's based
you're
on an
calling me
understanding of what
disingenuous.
it's
Oh,
based on an understanding of what Qibla is. It's based on an understanding
thank
of
you.
what Masjid al-Haram
Yes,
is, and all of that
yes,
is
indeed.
demonstrated through the Quran itself. It's not this Qibla of the
Indeed,
mind in these random different places around the
indeed,
world that
indeed.
could be in your bathroom
Yes.
and down the
And
street with
and
Johnny. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
no need for that. No need for that, Jake. That's
No, but
getting emotional. We don't want to be emotional here,
no,
Jake.
because the
We want to
point
maintain
is
self-control,
the
discipline.
point is
Remember?
very simple, that your understanding of the text is not supported by the text, and I'm demonstrating that.
Oh, but unfortunately, you said it's the direction of prayer, and then
Yeah, because
if
we
the
know
word
that.
prayer is the word salah isn't there, and guess what?
Doesn't
It's you
matter.
who
You don't
says,
believe
well,
Salah is
it,
prayer to begin with. So it doesn't matter
but
even if
no,
it
it
were
doesn't.
there.
No, it does matter, because if the word salah is there and you say turn your face for the salah, then the argument will be much more difficult. Here, the argument is very
You
simple. It is
you
you
don't
who
believe that
inserted
Salah
this
is a
in.
prayer though.
You inserted this by ignoring the context. You quoted
No,
one
I'm not
phrase
ignoring the
from one.
context. I'm not ignoring the context.
Okay, so how does وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا link to that?
Okay,
Please let me know.
you're jumping back. We're now trying
I'm not
to
jumping. I'm going to the
identify
verse you
we're
quoted,
now
bro.
trying to identify what Masjid al-Haram is. I'm providing evidence for the fact that it is a specific place in which rituals are held. You're talking about
Yeah,
al-Bayt, which is mentioned, which pilgrimage is too, right? Because the brother mentioned Hajj is explicitly in the Arabic of the text. Now we want to
Hajj al-Bayt.
know
Yeah, Hajj al-Bayt.
now
Yeah.
we want to know whether Hajj al-Bayt is the same as when it mentions that a pilgrimage is also to Masjid al-Haram, and whether or not they are the same places.
Okay. Well, I did mention to you about al-Bayt, but first let me press home the point that Salah is not actually in the passage. Hence, you have committed a logical fallacy of circular logic there. What you've said is, well, according to our understanding, this is about Salah, therefore Salah is there.
That's
This
not
is
what
a
I said.
circular
That's
logical
a
argument.
straw man.
Okay,
That's a
that's what you said.
misrepresentation That's a
Okay,
misrepresentation of my argument.
please correct
So,
me. Please correct me,
yeah,
sir.
I
Please
did
correct me.
correct you
Please
several
correct me, sir.
times, and I told you it's based on, we don't even need to appeal to the Sunnah to understand that. It's based on the
Okay.
same usage of those words all throughout the Qur'an. But in order to do that, we would have to go through them one by one and walk you through, holding your hand, to show you how the Qur'an uses those terms. Now we're doing it with one
Jake, there's
such
no need for
example.
such emotional talk, Jake. We're friends here. Don't worry.
We're doing it with one such example, which is Masjid al-Haram, and that was my point in bringing that specific one up, so we can look at its usages throughout the Quran and show you that it lends credence to our interpretation and not yours. So this is how the conversation is going. Focus.
I think he's gone. Also, if you go to chapter 10, verse 87, it clearly says, Allah said to Moses, make your houses a qibla and then establish prayer. If you go to chapter 10, verse 87, the qibla is clearly a prayer.
Yeah, yeah, but
It's
brother,
clearly used as a
he's
direction
got
for
his own wacky interpretation of that. That's not complicated here.
prayer. Right. And
Let's just stay with Masjid al-Haram. And my question is, if what is being made to in terms of the Hajj, it's mentioned in verse 158, which is Bait, is it the same place as Masjid al-Haram, which we make pilgrimage to?
Yeah, sorry about that. Had a bit of a call there. Yeah, okay. So getting back to chapter 2, verse 143 to 144. Again, there is no salat mentioned there. Now, why isn't salat mentioned there? For a very simple
So
reason. The
you're not
context was
dealing with what we just talked about. Because I went through all the verses regarding Masjid al-Haram, and now you're not responding to the point. You're going back to Salah
So,
and the original voice
Aki Muslim,
verse.
just brother Farouk, and
yes, 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 Mr. Williams,
I
yes.
really need
Listening.
you to part of this dialogue and being calm. Being calm is one thing, which is also good, but the deflection and the diversion is like when a question is being asked, like I mean, if we're talking about Masjid Haram and you're going to somewhere else, to the 100 and so people that's inside of this room, and the 890 people, almost 900 people came to this room, mashallah, is that we're listening to this, and it's like, okay, you're not answering that like that, you're going somewhere else, and we don't want you we don't want you to do that. We respect you as being an intellectual, and we want you. Intellectuals have integrity, so it looks like you're trying to avoid, and if you don't know, you don't know, that's fine. You could just say, this is something that I can't answer. There's a principle in knowledge. We say uh, 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 half of knowledge is saying la adri, nifsul ilm la adri. That half of knowledge is saying I don't know. We're not going to hold you accountable if you say you don't know. When you avoid it, this is the same thing when we talk about the Arabic language. When people are saying, "Oh, the Arabic is not that important," and specific examples was given to you, the fact that you're going outside the Quran for another language, so that will actually refute the fact that you're Quran only. But anyway, I just want you to have integrity when he's asking you something about Masjid Haram, and you're going to the salawat and stuff like that. So go ahead, bro.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that, Mr. Williams. I had a call, so I could not hear what Jake was saying. So that's why I came back to that
And
point.
also, brother, and
Uh,
also, brother Aki Muslim, I want you to make sure that you let's try to make sure that he speaks as well too. Like, we don't want to cut him off and stuff like that. So go ahead, brother Farouk.
thank you so much. Yeah, so also, Mr. Williams, if you don't mind, when I answer his questions, would it be okay if he actually answers mine? Because
Of course.
I did
Hey,
not have the
we're
privilege
going to
of
be
asking
just.
him some
We're going to be
questions.
just. But sometimes when a question is being asked, and you ask a question, do you hurry up and get to? You answer the question, do you hurry up? Sometimes you want to make sure that dialogue is complete before we go to the next time. So go ahead. The next subject, inshallah. Go ahead.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you, and I really respect those rules. Those are the rules of gentlemanly conduct. So back to Jake. I will answer 2158, and then I expect Jake to answer a question of mine as well. So 2158 talks about Safa and Marwa, which are not hills of Safa and Marwa, but rather As-Safa and Al-Marwa. I see both of them as particular states. Safa refers to a state in which everything is lining up, considering the word Saf, and Marwa is a state of vision from the word ru'ya. And this state is for those who are envisioning the journey to the house, Hajj al-Bayt, what the pilgrimage to the house. What is this house? If we look at chapter 2, verse 1 to 4 to 1 to 5, it says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى sorry, just let me quote it. I don't want to misquote in this case. Didn't memorize the verses. I should have memorized these verses, but I did
Farouk,
not.
I just want to make
Um,
sure. Do you remember what my question was? Because you said you didn't hear me. Do you remember what my question was?
well, yeah, I remember you mentioning 2158, and then I got cut out when I was talking about the Salah. I had a call, so now I'm returning to 2158. Is that okay with you, Jake?
Yeah, but I'm asking, what is my question about 2158?
Yeah, you said there's Hajj al-Bayt there, I think, something like that,
I'm
and I said
asking
that's a
you.
false equivocation.
No. I asked. See, this is the point. You're not answering the question because you don't know the question. My question
Okay,
was,
please
what
please
is
restate that. Thank you.
the Hajj to the al Bayt, which is mentioned in 158, is it the same as Hajj to Masjid al-Haram? Are they the same place?
Can you please point out the verse which says, oh, you're talking about 2196, aren't you? Yes, they
No,
are
no, I'm
Hajj
not.
al.
No, I'm not. I'm not talking about anything. I'm
You're
just
not talking
asking you.
about anything.
I'm
Okay, my
asking
bad.
you if
Okay.
they are the same. If when it says, because you know that the Quran mentions Hajj, right? When it mentions
Yeah.
Hajj to the house and it
Mm-hmm.
mentions
Mm-hmm.
Hajj to Masjid al-Haram, or in the context of the
Yes, sir.
same descriptions of what is happening at the house and the same descriptions that are happening at Masjid al-Haram, are they referring to the same location? Are they two different
Uh,
places?
they are the same location, but in two different states. States here is not state as in a nation state, but rather a state of being.
Okay, you'll have to explain that because I don't know what that, how that's going to pan out. I don't know what that means. I know what a
Okay,
different
so
state of
let's
being
just
is, but in the context, I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
because when something has a bait, it has certain sifat. When some place has is Masjid al-Haram, it has different sifat. That's why it's not the same state of being.
So wait, say that again. When it has a house, it has certain sifat, it has certain attributes or things that are ascribed to it. Yeah,
Maybe characteristic or attributes. But and when it is Masjid al-Haram, it has different characteristics.
it has different characteristics. So they're not referring
Yes.
to the same state.
This state of being. If you say state of being, yes, it's not a state of being. It's the same geographical location. I mean, it happened for Ibrahim, so it is the same state of being, same state of place, but not the same state of being because it's in two different contexts.
Okay, so continue what you want to say about 158, and then I'll show why I don't think
Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay. So we have chapter 2, verse 158, which mentions Hijjul Bait. So what is Al Bait in this case? If you go to chapter 2, verse 124, it says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَامُهُنَّ. Ibrahim was tested by the words, or tested by his Lord with words. فَأَتَامُهُنَّ, and he completed them. قَالَ, Allah said, إِنِّي جَاعِلُكَ لِلنَّاسِ إِمَامًا. I have made you an imam of the people. That being the case, this is not about a religious pilgrimage. It is about Ibrahim completing the commands of his Lord and being made an imam. What does this have to do with Bait? We'll see in the next verse. I had to cut this verse short because that's about Ibrahim's progeny. And then, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. And we place the house as a rewarding place for the people and a safe place. وَاتَّخَذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and take for from the place of Ibrahim your salah, your place of focus, I would say. And وَأَخِدْنَا إِلَى Ibrahim, and we covenanted towards Ibrahim wa Ismail, an tahhira baiti, that you purify my house, لِلطَّائِفِينَ وَالْعَاكِفِينَ وَرُكَعِ السُّجُودِ, for the travelers and the devotees and those who are kneeling in submission. So this being the case, this is not a place where you go for a religious pilgrimage. It is a place where the commands, the kalimat of Allah has been fulfilled. This is states of al-Bayt. Now in Masjid al-Haram, it is talking from a different perspective, a different hal, as I was telling you. And that hal is the hurumat of Allah, where the restrictions and what Allah holds sacred is in operation. That is why it is not a physical place in Makkah. Now my question to you is, now if Ibrahim made it mathabatan linnas wa amna, why is the pilgrimage in Makkah only restricted to people who label themselves Muslims? Thank you so much.
Yeah. So just dealing with the verse you brought up. So that's 124 and 125, I think. The interesting part is that the word bait, right, in this context, is talking about those who, and you don't translate it this way, but those who circle around it, circumambulate, those who what? Bow and prostrate in prayer. The word salah, you're saying, was mentioned. So again, the context is showing clear that it is in connection with these rituals and these aspects. And the only way to get around that is to reinterpret all these different words. I wish you just would have continued and read the next verse, read 126. Why don't you do that?
I'm sorry, were you done? I was
Yeah, I'm
listening
saying,
to you.
why didn't you read the next verse, 146? Can you read what that says?
146. What does 146 have
126.
to do with this? 126.
26.
Sorry, I could go all the way, but are you sure your translation of 125 is correct? Because you mentioned those who circumambulate, ta'ifain.
No, I
You
already
mentioned that.
listen, dude. I already said that you don't agree with the translation. I'm pointing out what is there. That's what I pointed out. Now I'm asking you, what is in 126?
126 is Ibrahim making a dua about making this place a safe place and feeding his people with fruits.
Yeah, so it's a specific
So,
place.
but I do need to call your attention to 125 and your translation of the circumambulators, the ta'ifain, and the ruka'i sujud. Now, can you read your translation for me again, please?
No, I didn't read from any translation.
You didn't, okay, but you mentioned the people who bow and prostrate. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
I already said, which you're not listening. You're wasting time. I already know what your
I'm not
position
wasting
is.
time.
I already, yeah, you are, because I already know what your position is, which is to reinterpret what sujood is, what salah is, what bowing is. I already know that. That's going to get us down
But but
an
but,
entirely different thing
but
where now
Jake,
we have to look at all of these individual words in the Qur'an and show that your
well,
interpretation of those is incorrect. You need to reinterpret all of these different words in
but
order
but
for it to make any sense. That's what I'm
but
trying to
Jake,
demonstrate through this dialogue. You
but,
need to
Jake,
reinterpret
Jake,
sujud. You need to reinterpret
okay,
salah. You
you
need
land.
to
I'm going
reinterpret
to ask my next
al-bayt. You
question
need to
after
reinterpret
you land.
al-Masjid al-Haram. You need to reinterpret Safa and Marwa as being two states of being. You need to understand that al-bayt is a certain state of being and Masjid al-Haram is another state of being, and all of this nonsense. That's what you have to do. Now, in order for us now to stop at every individual place, we're going to have to look at each individual word and show that that's not the correct understanding. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to focus on the Masjid al-Haram part. And in light of that, when verses are being mentioned, which are being brought up in that context, inevitably it's mentioning other concepts in which we're going to disagree. But if we keep now getting caught up on those and going down translation of circumambulation and of salah and of sujood, and it doesn't actually mean physical prostration and all this kind of stuff, we're never going to settle the issue of Masjid al-Haram. That's the whole point.
Oh, have you landed? Okay, thank you. I just want to point out these things because this feeds back into your argument. Now, your argument is you said very tendentiously you are hoping to reinterpret,
I didn't say that.
away from
I didn't say that.
you have to reinterpret these
I
things.
said you
Okay,
do, not
but
me.
yeah, no, yes, I'm saying you're saying it to me, quote unquote. Farouk has to reinterpret. Is that correct?
Yeah,
That's what you said. Okay.
you have to reinterpret, yes,
Yes,
because
yes. That's a very
nobody preceded you in this interpretation for 1400 years.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's true. If
Do
if
you
you
have a
read the
demonstration
Fiqh
that
Sufiyah,
is the case?
not offhand, no. So I have
You
to
don't,
not use
because
that.
nobody
But
preceded you in this at all.
well, I mean, if you wish to take to continue this discussion in another platform on the planned conditions, I would present them to you.
I
But in
would be
any case,
happy. I would be
I
happy for. Well, that's a good point. I'll let you have the last word because I'm actually at work and I'm stopping from working and I'm not going to be able to continue speaking any
yeah, I'm really
longer.
sorry about that,
But
Jake. I'm really
but
sorry.
but but
But it
but
was good to see
so
you.
let me just
But
finish.
yeah,
Just
let
let
me
me
land
just
my
this.
last point
I
and
know, but I'm
then
just making a comment. You can land your
okay,
point, and
please,
I'm
yeah.
not going to respond. And I'd be happy to with Brother Hanif or on any other stage in which there is a neutral moderation to have a discussion on this topic or anything else that you would like regarding Qur'an alone versus Qur'an and Sunnah and however you want to frame it. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
No problem. That's brilliant. Let me just land on this point. The most glaring mistranslation you gave us today was bow and prostrate. There is no and in between bow and prostrate. It's not ar-raqi'in wa sajidin. It's ruku is sujud. Bow in prostration. Hence, this is not the ritual you are talking about. I will land on that point, and if you want, we can arrange for that debate. I do not like to call myself Quran alone because, as Mr. Williams pointed out, we are
Qur'anist,
not
okay.
Quran alone. Yes, we are not Quran alone because we have to rely on language resources, and we have to also rely on our own reason, which may be subjective. So, yes, if you wish to have that discussion, I'd be most happy to have that with you under controlled conditions. Thank you so much.
Okay, but do
Yeah,
you
sure. Just
concede that
really
Masjid
quick.
al-Haram is actually a place?
Yeah, he does. But hold on. I just want to point something out because Brother Habib, are you here? Are you here and able
Yes,
to talk? Yeah, I just
yes.
want to know if you agree with Farouk's interpretation of all these different concepts and verses that were mentioned, and whether or not you accept that Salah is in fact a ritual prayer that is directed towards a physical place, Masjid al-Haram in Mecca.
Yeah, so I literally take everything that the Quran explicitly says. I don't seek any interpretation. So I believe that Salat is a physical ritual, and those locations are physical rituals, uh, as it explicitly says. Thank
So
you.
you disagree with pretty much most of what he had to say, even though you also claim to be Qur'an only or Muslim. I know you prefer this term, so I'm not saying it in that way. I'm just pointing out, as I stated in the beginning to Brother Hanif, that this is a clear example of a difference amongst the so-called Qur'aniyun, in which some of them accept the rituals, and although they may disagree with us, Brother Habib, on other very important issues, right, they still accept Salah and Hajj and these different things in a similar manner in which we do, except for you have another group, such as Farouk's group, which are very anti any type of ritual, pretty much. They do not believe in Hajj, Siyam, in Salah as is traditionally understood. And the reason why I know this is because when I was in that position, I went through both of those phases. I initially was in Brother Habib's position of praying 5 times a day and doing all of these things. But there was a moment in which I felt that I was a bit of a hypocrite because the details, and this is the problem that I have with Brother Habib's position, but it's another topic. The details for these so called rituals are not found in the Quran. We have some examples of them, but we don't have all of the details. And so there was a time in which I was praying and I was performing the prayer. And I said, what in the hell am I doing? I'm going around trying to beat these Sunnis over the head, calling them mushriks, and because they're following another source. Yet the prayer that I myself am doing, the details for it aren't in the Quran. And yet I'm claiming that the Quran is fully detailed. Tafsir li kulli shay.
Jake,
So just let me
Jake,
finish.
may
Just
I
let me
just
finish.
Can I
Just
can
let
I
me.
add something, Jake,
Just let me finish.
about my
I'm
position?
sorry,
I'm
you
gonna
kind of
land.
said I was
I'm just
anti-ritual there.
gonna.
Please stay, yeah? Well, I'll correct that.
I'm just
Okay,
gonna,
thank
I'm
you.
just going to, yeah, I'm gonna listen, but just let me finish the point. Then I went to Farouk's position of saying, no, Salah is not a ritual prayer. There's no ritual prayer 5 times a day or praying towards Mecca and any kind of this because of that problem that I didn't have the details for what I was doing and what I was saying. And so I had to adopt an alternative position, which is to radically reinterpret all of these terms and go down the route that Farouk was doing. And when I realized that I could no longer defend that position and that both were untenable, that's eventually when I became a Sunni. But yeah, you can talk if you want.
Thank you very much, Jake. I just want to point out this term anti-ritual. I take great exception to that. I am not anti-ritual. People perform rituals. I sometimes perform rituals. However, I do not see the rituals in the Quran. Rather, I perform them as cultural expression. And as a side note, I do not call anyone else mushrikeen.
I didn't say
This
you
is
did.
something which is okay. I'm just clarifying because I don't want people to misconstrue my
I
position.
said that I
I
did
am
in the
not.
past. That's what I said.
Good for you. I did not, and I am not, and I will not. Thank you very much.
I just